Okay, so we're beginning at exactly 8:30. So welcome to University of Ghana. Welcome to this course. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir, we
Yes, we
can.
can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, that's splendid. Sorry, let me pick up a call from your TA. Yeah, ma'am, good morning. As a matter of fact, we've begun. Yeah, so if you're available, you can log on. Okay, that's fine. Welcome. So this is Ghana's premier university. We expect that we'll get the best of training here. Among the courses that have been designed to introduce you to university life is this course. It is titled Critical Thinking and Practical Reasoning. This is a course that is supposed to refine your approach to problem solving, human relationships, and your attitude to life in general. Now, as the name suggests, critical thinking, the course is designed to train you to think critically. As you move on in life, you encounter situations where you need to think critically. Now, let's take a look at our slide for today. I am presuming that you have gone through the course outline. So for the avoidance of doubt, let me display the course outline so that we can go through some of the items. Now, this is our course outline for this course. Now, critical thinking is a careful and deliberate determination of whether we should accept, reject, or suspend judgment about a claim and of the degree of confidence with which to accept or reject it. So the course is about accepting and rejecting claims made, in support or against phenomena or ideas. Now, the course will be delivered primarily online. We're supposed to be meeting twice a week, but due to the clash of a lot of courses, we would meet today, and then sometime during the week, we schedule possibly on Wednesday. And those who are able to attend that class, would benefit from asking questions. Those who are not able to would have to. Now let's look at what we are expecting from this course. Now, item 3.1 is talking about knowledge. Students must have knowledge on how to distinguish different types of arguments, knowledge, truth, and how best to acquire them. They should know, I'm sorry. They should know the difference between inductive reasoning for probable truths and deductive ones for necessary. And then there is think about the value or significance of each type of reasoning. So in this course, we'll be learning the different methods of reasoning. Actually, there are two broad categories of reasoning. You have inductive reasoning and then you have deductive reasoning. And then we are expected to know why it is necessary to examine one's own thoughts and how to categorize the sentences that express them. Then we should be finding out about the difference between empirical and normative judgments. We have the empirical and the normative. Whatever is empirical has to do with facts in the external world, objects, facts, things you can verify. But whatever is normative has to do not with facts, but with beliefs, or preferences, opinion, um, standards of what should be done and what should not be done. Anything in the realm of the normative is something in the realm of what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. So it's normative is an area of ethics. In this course, we'll also be learning about definitions, defining, defining objects, defining phenomena, defining ideas. One of the most crucial skills in thinking critically is to have an accurate idea, an accurate concept of what you are dealing with. And in order to have an accurate concept of what you are dealing with, you should be able to define that thing properly. So definition is an exercise in obtaining information about the meaning of something. If we can succeed in accuracy about the meaning of concepts, of ideas, of phenomena, then we have solved half of the problem of critical thinking. Just imagine that you are reasoning or you are discussing or you are arguing about something that you don't really understand, something whose meaning you don't really have, or something about which you are not accurate in its meaning. It means that your whole argument, your whole discussion, or your whole deliberation is is off on the wrong track from the start. So before you can think critically, you have to have an accurate idea or grasp or meaning of what you are dealing with. So accurate definitions, are the first step to critical thinking. You need to have an accurate grasp of reality before you even begin to reason about reality. So that is why the issue of definitions is very important in critical reasoning. And then from there, we'll look at different kinds of discourses. We have arguments, we have instructions, we have rhetoric, we have narrative. And then the last major challenge for the semester would be to study fallacies. Fallacies are instances of bad reasoning. So in logic or in critical thinking, the basic thing we normally do is to study good reasoning, and from good reasoning, we study bad reasoning. So you study good reasoning first, and then you study bad reasoning so that you can see the bad counterpart of good reasoning. You don't really appreciate good reasoning unless you know the bad ones. Okay. Now, about skills. Students must be able to identify and critically analyze sentences that claim some truth and point out those that are incapable of being true or false. And then we should also be able to identify when the principles of logic may or may not be used in a type of language. So this course, properly speaking, is called logic. Critical thinking is just a recent name. The old name for this course is logic. And one of the instances of training we're going to get in this course is to be able to identify logic or the absence of logic in a particular, discussion. And then we should be able to identify and construct arguments. So argumentation is really the center of critical thinking. That's what critical thinking is all about. We are here to study arguments. We are here to train ourselves to be good argumentators. And then number 4, we want to be able to apply the appropriate philosophical techniques to study the strengths and weaknesses of arguments. And 5, we want to avoid the pitfalls in different modes of reasoning so as to reason well. And then number 6, we want to apply the appropriate techniques for reasoning in one's everyday life. Now, it is good to point this out at this point. Whatever techniques are going to help you to learn how to argue well are also the same techniques you'll be using to solve problems. Now, solving a problem is like making an argument. So reasoning functions to make arguments as well as to solve problems. So that's the fortunate aspect of logic, that problems are solved using logic. Arguments are also made using logic. So it's like, killing two birds with a stone. And then number 7, determining the appropriate way in which the meaning of a word is being sought. Now we can study the rest of this, but I think we should begin straight away with what we have. So now, do you have a course rep? Is there a course rep for your group?
Sir, please, we don't know.
No, sir.
We don't have.
We don't know. We don't have.
So who is volunteering to be?
We don't know.
Sir, please, he said.
So who's volunteering to be a course rep?
Me.
Sir.
Yes, yes.
Let me see.
Please me.
I need so that I can.
So I'll assist somebody. I'll be assistant.
Lariba Audu.
Is that Rema Daniel?
Please, you want Gloria Chum?
Yes, please.
Mention your name and stop mentioning people's name.
Okay, so 2 and Purpose are so automatically the first one becomes the rep and the second becomes the assistant. So Rema Daniel, you are the rep.
Thank you.
And then Nana Kwame is assisting you.
So we come back.
And you guys are going to work hand in hand with the tutor or the TA. So, get in touch with her. She's Naomi. So you'll be relaying most of our messages to the others. All through the semester, there will be very crucial information that you'll be passing across. I don't need to be communicating with the entire group. When I have some piece of information, I give it to you, and then you give it to the others. Okay, so having gotten a course rep, now we'll begin the business. Today we are looking at speech acts. What are speech acts? Now let's look at this. A speech act is an utterance that performs a certain function in language. I hope we're still recording. Yeah, we are. So a speech act is an utterance that performs a certain function in language and communication. We perform speech acts when we ask questions, make a request, assert a proposition, make judgment, express emotions, and so on. So a speech act may be one word, a complete sentence, or an incomplete one. So what this passage is basically saying is that any sound that comes out of your mouth is a speech act, even if it is just so the question is to categorize the speech acts and identify them according to different groups. So we have different kinds of speech acts. We ask questions, we make requests, we assert propositions, we make judgments, we express emotions. Now, so what we are doing in the next 1 hour is to find out the different kinds of speech acts. So types of speech acts. First, we have the interrogative sentence. Interrogative sentences are what we normally call questions. They end in a question mark. Now, before I continue, by way of a general comment, why are we studying speech acts in a course on logic and critical thinking? We're studying speech acts because logic is a mode of reasoning. Now, logic is about reasoning, or you can say critical thinking is about reasoning. Now, we reason in language, or we use language to reason. Even when you are on your own and you are thinking about something, that thinking is taking place in a language. Sometimes it can, it can take place in a graphic way, and sometimes it can take place in language. When, for instance, you are asking yourself questions in private, you are meditating and you are regretting something you did, or you are happy for an action you took in the past, you are talking to yourself. Language is, is occurring there. So in order to study reasoning, we need to go back to the instruments we use in language, so that we look at the instruments, the language instruments we are going to use in reasoning. So the first half of the semester is looking at several aspects of language, but it's not exactly like your English language courses. So we'll be studying only those aspects of language that we need for the business of logical reasoning. And you will see that as we progress. So now we are beginning with speech acts. We're discussing speech acts because certain speech acts are designed to obtain information. Certain ones are designed to communicate an idea or something. Certain ones are designed to give instruction, and different types. Now, when we have gone through the different types, then we see the types where we apply arguments and the places where we define objects and things, So that is how we proceed. You begin from the general, and then we narrow down to what we need for logical reasoning. Now, interrogative sentence. Interrogative sentences are what we normally call questions. They end in a question mark. The purpose of interrogative sentences is to solicit or require information from someone. Interrogative sentences cannot be true or false. For example, do you have the keys to the door? How are you doing this morning? What is your name? So interrogatives are simply questions. When you ask a question, you have uttered an interrogative. An interrogative comes from the word, of course, you've heard about the police interrogating people. To interrogate is simply to ask questions. Do you have the keys to the door? How are you doing this morning? What is your name? Then, in contrast to interrogatives, we have imperatives or imperative sentences. Imperatives are sentences spoken to require someone to do something or undertake certain actions. So when you are requesting someone to do something, you are making an imperative. Imperatives include commands, instructions, directives, requests, and pleas. A command is used to offer. Now, so you can see we have different types of imperatives. Commands, instructions, directives, requests, and pleas. So we have the soft imperatives. The soft imperatives Those ones we make in a very polite and supplicatory way, such as please and requests. And then we have the hard imperatives. Those ones we make authoritatively, and we possibly want to back them up with force. They include commands, directives, and sometimes instructions. Now, a command is used to offer authoritative or dictatorial order for something to be done. An instruction is a direction or order used to guide someone to do something. A directive is an authoritative order used to establish a policy, assign responsibilities, define a set of objectives, and delegate authority to someone to do something. A request is an act of asking politely or formally for something to be done. A plea is a supplication for a certain action or decision to be taken. So you can see the hard imperatives and the soft ones. Okay. Now, examples of imperatives. Clear this desk by tomorrow. So that sounds like a directive or a command. Please water the plants. That's a request. Drive to the junction, turn right. That's an instruction. Do not turn over the next page until you are told to do so. That's a directive. Answer only one question from this section. That's an instruction. Slow down, men at work. Mom, please tie my shoes. That's a request. So that's about imperatives. Now we go to declaratives. What are declaratives? Declaratives are sentences that convey information. So when we utter declaratives, we are providing information. Now look at, you remember the two previous ones. Interrogatives are spoken to obtain information. That is, they are questions. And then imperatives are spoken to get someone to do something. But declaratives are spoken to provide information. Yeah, so that's the difference between the three. Now, in contrast to interrogatives and imperatives, declaratives are capable of being true or false. Because when you are providing information, your information has truth value. That is, your information can be true, it can be false. But you can't say the same thing about asking questions or giving instructions. Now, declaratives are normally called propositions. They can be factual statements, value judgments, definitions, or arguments. So you have four types: factual statements, value judgments, definitions. Then you can have arguments as well. Now we are looking at types of declaratives. We'll begin with the factual statements. So a factual statement is or a statement of fact. It's an expression that conveys information about the state of affairs in the external world. So when we are making a factual statement, we are making claims about the external world. It is the external world that you have facts. Now, a factual statement is true if it conveys accurate information about facts. And then it is false if the factual information is incorrect. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, so factual statements are claims about the external world. Examples: grass is green. That's a factual statement. Snow is white. The man is the current provost of the College of Arts and Culture. So these are factual statements. How do you disprove these statements? You disprove these statements by presenting alternative facts. If grass is not green, then you have to prove it. Or if you think snow is not white, then you have to prove it with alternative facts. And if you don't think that the man referred to is the current provost of the College of Arts and Culture, then you have to prove it. So factual statements are verifiable. Factual statements are verifiable. They can only be disproved by presenting alternative facts. Okay. Then we have another type of declaratives. We have definitions. I already hinted about definitions earlier. So definitions are sentences spoken to convey information about the meaning of a word or words. Examples of definitions include: a lion is a large carnivorous feline mammal of Africa and Northwest India, having a short tunic coat, a tufted tail, and in a male, a heavy mane around the neck and shoulders. So definitions are spoken to provide information about the meaning of a word or word. So the business of definitions is the business of providing information about meaning. So factual information, factual sentences or factual statements provide information about the external world, but definitions provide information about the meaning of words or things. A bed is a piece of furniture upon which or within which a person sleeps or rests. Then look at this other declarative, value judgment. A value judgment or claim is a value judgment is a claim about something moral, practical, and aesthetic value or suitability. So we saw factual statements, claims about the external world. We saw definitions, which are sentences that provide the meaning of something. And then this is value judgment. Value judgment is about expressing, making claims about something's moral or practical or aesthetic value or suitability. Now, value judgments do not describe the world like factual statements do. Rather, value judgments prescribe certain attitudes and behaviors towards the world. So what value judgments do is not to describe facts. Now, value judgments are not about what is. Value judgments are about what ought to be. So they are not about what is, but what ought to be or what ought not to be. Now let's see some examples. That's right, that's wrong. Michael is a good man. Jezebel has no conscience. So these are value statements. Now the first one, that's right, tells you that the speaker believes that something, something is going in a way that we should all accept. And then the second one says the opposite. Then the third example, is telling that the speaker believes that someone is a good person. Someone is behaving in a way that all of us should emulate. And then the fourth example is the opposite. So these are value judgments. They are statements about value, not facts. Now, two types of value judgments. There are two types of value judgments. You have the moral and non-moral. The moral value judgments are claims about something's moral suitability or value. For example, abortion is evil. Do not commit adultery. Do not insult your spouse. These are moral value judgments. And then you have the non-moral. The non-moral are claims about something's practical or aesthetic value. Now, so you have to distinguish between moral value and non-moral value. The non-moral values are the practical or the aesthetic value. When you talk about practical value, you are talking about, the ability of something to, make our lives better in the world. If something makes our lives better, then it has practical value. If something has utility value, or if something is durable, or something is strong, or something is resilient, or something is reliable, or something, those things are practical, values of practicality, utility values. Then if something is beautiful or good looking, or it is not beautiful, it is ugly, then those are aesthetic values. So these are all non-moral values. They are the two categories of non-moral values. You have the practical or utility values, and then you have the aesthetic values. Okay. Then we have examples. Ofori is an excellent student. The shirt is too tight on you. That car is too beautiful. Now, the first example of Ofori is an excellent student, has to do with the ability of someone to do something well. That's a value. That's a good non-moral value. The second one is about a shirt, the size of a shirt, or the size of a piece of clothing. That's a non-moral value, but it's a value. And then the third one is about, how good it is to look at a car, the good looking value of a car. So it's a value, but a non-moral one. It's an aesthetic value. So that's about value judgments. You have two types of value judgments. You have the moral value judgment, and then you have the non-moral value judgment, which consists of the utility values, and then statements about utility values, and then statements about aesthetic values. And then apart from now, what I will say now is not in the curriculum. I teach it elsewhere, but I think it's good to mention it. You also have descriptive and prescriptive moral value judgments, or rather you have descriptive and prescriptive value judgments. When you are making a descriptive value judgment, you are describing, a value. For instance, abortion is evil, this is good, that is bad. Those are descriptive. But when you are making a prescriptive value judgment, you are rather prescribing. Don't do this, don't do that. You should do this, you should not do that. So you are prescribing. But when you are saying this is good, this is bad, you are describing. So it's good to take note of that, although it's not in our curriculum here. Okay, so you have emotive expressions. So these are sentences that express emotional feelings. Emotive expressions that show strong feeling may often end in exclamation mark, but this is not always the case for all emotive expressions. Example of emotive expressions include, I love that guy, I hate how she dresses, we hope you win the tournament, hallelujah. So these are emotive expressions. They express emotions. They don't have logical content for you to agree or disagree. I love that guy. You can't disagree with someone for loving someone. If someone loves someone, it's that person's feeling. You can't say, no, it is not true that you don't love him, that kind of thing. They are not arguments. They are, expressions of feelings. So that's why they are called emotive expressions. We hope you win the tournament. It's not something you agree or disagree with. When someone says, I hope you, I hope you have a nice day. It's not an argument. You don't agree or disagree with it. It's an expression of an emotion, the emotion of hope. Hallelujah. You don't say not hallelujah, those things. So that's why they are called emotive expressions. Then you have the sentence fragment. Sentence fragments are incomplete sentences lacking either noun or verb. Sometimes sentence fragments act as signposts to show direction or to advertise a product. So sentence fragments are incomplete sentences, that are either lacking noun or verb. And sometimes they can be used as, slogans, advertisements, or, signposts. Examples of sentences include Desmond for Parliament, Yam with sauce, your dream house. So these are incomplete sentences. Now let's look at the exercises. Now rewrite the following emotive expressions as value judgments. So these are emotive expressions. Convert them to value judgments. What a beautiful lady. That's an emotive expression. So as a value judgment, how would it read? Someone. What a beautiful lady. Convert to value judgment.
She is beautiful.
She is beautiful. How kind he is. Convert to value judgment.
He is kind.
Yeah, he's kind. And then the third one. What an extremely delightful journey. So
The journey was
The journey is
extremely
extremely delightful.
okay, so then the second assignment, or rewrite the imperative sentence below as interrogative. So convert from imperative to interrogative. Shut your mouth up would be as interrogative. How does it read?
Will you shut your mouth?
Will you shut your mouth?
Will you shut your mouth up?
Speak loudly.
Please speak loudly.
Shut your mouth up.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah, will
Can you speak loud?
Will you shut up?
Please speak loudly.
Okay, will you speak loudly and then get up quickly and read your books?
Can you get up and read your books?
And then you have to be faithful. You also have to be faithful to the exact words. So for this one, what you just do is you just put will. You just add will at the beginning and then put your question marks. Will you get up quickly and read your book so that the rest of the sentence remains the same. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes, sir.
okay, then the third one, rewrite the following interrogative sentences as statements of fact. Yeah, so convert these interrogatives to factual statements. Now, interrogative is Amma playing football. Convert to factual.
Amma plays football. Amma plays football.
Amma plays football or Amma is playing football. Okay, because we don't want to change the playing.
Amma plays football.
We can just say
Amma
Amma
is playing football.
And then the second one.
He has finished his
He has finished his homework.
He has finished his homework. So you just transfer the has to come after the he. And then the third one.
The match is coming up
Match
today.
is
The
coming
match is
up
coming up
today.
The match came up today.
It's coming up. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So we are done for today.
Yeah, that's for today.
I'll be inviting you to another class in the week where we would study definitions. So next week is for definitions. That should be on.
Second July.
I think we should make it Monday. I'm choosing between Monday and Tuesday.
So Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Please, Monday.
Tuesday.
Please, Monday.
Monday.
Monday after me class.
Tuesday we have
Tuesday. Please, Monday.
Don't worry by I'll take a decision by Sunday.
So the Friday is okay.
Yeah, the Friday is okay, but we have to meet twice a week.
Monday.
Once a week.
Tuesday.
Monday is not possible. One is Saturday.
Yeah, so
Who said Saturday?
Tuesday, please.
Hey, Jai Saturday now, so okay, can
Wednesday,
on
please, Wednesday.
yeah, so don't worry.
Tuesday.
Don't worry. When the time comes, we'll
Hey, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
if you're not able to attend,
Kevin not say stop that Saturday thing. Ah,
if you're not able to attend, it's fine. You just do what you do.
And Saturday is okay.
Wednesday. Oh.
Let's hold up.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions for what we just did? If you have any question, you just raise your hand.
No, sir, I don't have any question.
Okay, that's fine. Blankson Lanti.
Say good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
I learned interrogations that do not require informations are also imperatives. I wanted to ask how is that? Can you clarify that one for me?
Interrogatives, but interrogatives have to end up in they have to end up in question mark.
Yes, please.
So interrogatives that don't require information.
Yes, like
Yeah, give an example.
can you please shut the door? Yes, it doesn't require any feedback. It doesn't require any information, but it requires you to do something.
Yeah,
They are imperatives.
yes, that's beautiful, and we nearly skipped that. It's a very good example, and we were actually supposed to discuss it in class.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so there are interrogatives that function as imperatives. So
okay, sir.
When you look at the structure of the sentence, because it is ending in a question mark, structurally it appears as an interrogative.
Okay.
But what about functionally? Its functionality, what function? So functionally, it is doing the work of an imperative. So its structure is one thing, and then its function is another.
Yes, sir.
When you are facing a clash between structure and function, which one would you prioritize?
So the function.
Yeah, so I think you have to prioritize the function over the structure, because after all, the structure is existing for the sake of the function.
Yes.
Yeah, so the structure is just a means to the end, and the end is the function.
Okay.
Yeah, but I doubt that such a test or a question will arise in any of your assessments.
Oh, okay, sir. Say, and then I also came across explicit and implicit. What are those ones?
Explicit and implicit. Can you offer any example? Explicit, you mean explicit and implicit interrogatives?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay, what kind, how would it look like?
Sir, I didn't really understand that aspect.
Anyway, in any case, since it is not in our curriculum, it's fine. If you don't have an example, you can bring it up later.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Probably in another class.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
It's fine. So if you are done, you have to bring down your hand, and then I'll see the number of those that are left. Then
okay, sir. Thank you.
Anita. Is Anita ready? Anita Mwako. What about Samuel?
Yes, sir. Say please about the
Someone, you have to raise your volume.
Changing the so please, when we're changing the interrogative sentences to statements of facts, the first example is Amma playing football. And for it to become a statement of fact, that is become past tense or it remains in the present tense.
Yes, you have to change, you have to make only the change that is required to convert it to the target. The target is factual statement. So any changes that are not necessary for that conversion, you just forget about it. So is Amma playing football? For a factual statement, you just move the is from appearing before Amma to appearing before after Amma. So is Amma. It will become Amma is, and then you convert the question mark to a full stop. So only such a change is necessary. Any other change is not necessary. Is Amma playing football? Is Amma playing football? Amma playing football. So something like Amma plays football. I'm coming. Yeah, so something like Amma plays football, is tampering with other parts of the sentence. Yeah, first of all, you converted playing to plays, and then you eliminated is entirely. So those ones are not needed. You just make the changes that are necessary for the conversion and leave the others as they are. Is Amma playing football? Amma is playing football. So the only thing that is different is Amma and Amma is. And then the question mark.
Thank you, sir.
And then Veronica. Your network is not very strong.
Sir, please, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So go ahead.
Okay, please, I wanted to know if value judgments can also be referred to as normative statements, since it makes claim about something moral, practical, or aesthetic value. As in from the examples you give, for example, Michael is a good man. It doesn't really have a certain fact. It's like what someone is thinking it should be. So I wanted to know if you can refer to value judgments as normatives.
Yeah, value judgments are normative statements. They are statements about what ought to be, and what ought not to be. So you remember I said normative. The normative area of life has to do with what should be, what ought to be, what ought not to be, and those things. So the normative is the area of the value. So they are all the same thing.
Okay, please, I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, please, I wanted to know if true or false answers are the same as yes or no answers.
True or false and yes or no?
Yeah, is it the same?
Not exactly. True means that something something is corresponding with with the external world and with what we believe. True means that a certain claim is supported by the external world and supported by what we believe about the external world. That's what it means to be true. So you can't translate that as yes. Yes is a much broader instrument. We use yes for many things. If someone gives you an instruction, you can say yes. If someone expresses a feeling, you can agree and say yeah, those things. So yes is much broader than true.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Grace.
Yes, sir.
Grace.
Sir, please, can you hear me? Hello. Sir, please, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
Grace.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, it's about the interrogative sentences. So I read from somewhere that the questions may be successful or not, depending on whether or not it attracts the correct answer. So I wanted to say that does the answer always have to be maybe a verbal answer, or it has to deal with actions? Because let's say, for example, could you please close the door? You sometimes you don't need an answer, but I don't know how to put it. You don't need an answer for that, but when the action is done, that means like your request has been granted or something. So I wanted to ask, like, could you please throw more light on that statement for me?
Yes, when they say that a question is successful when it elicits an answer, they are referring to an interrogative that performs the function of an interrogative. And then even if it performs the function of an imperative and it elicits the right action, then it is still successful. So whether the interrogative is designed to elicit a verbal response or a physical response, their success can be evaluated along those lines. So it depends on whether the interrogative is designed to elicit words or actions. We have already discussed that some interrogatives are designed to elicit action. So you can measure their success in that regard. Yeah, so I think we're done with the questions and we are going to end the class here. So we'll be giving you further information about our next class. I wish all of you a happy weekend.
Thank
Same
you.
to you, sir.
Yeah.
Same to you, sir.
Okay.
Same to
Thank
you.
you, sir.
All
Same to you, Doctor.
right.